I spent 20 years spraying chemicals on my garden, every weekend mixing bottles, pulling on gloves, walking between rows with a pump sprayer on my back, and the deer still ate my roses. The rabbits still chewed my hostas to the ground. The aphids still won. Then I stopped fighting. I stopped spraying, and I started choosing differently. That one shift changed everything. I am 74 years old. I have been gardening for 51 years, and the most expensive lesson I ever learned had nothing to do with fertilizer or soil amendments. It was this: the right plant in the right place does not need protecting. The wrong plant in the wrong place will drain your time, your money, and your patience no matter how much you spray. Today I am sharing 10 plants that deer, rabbits, and garden pests refuse to touch. These are not obscure species. These are beautiful, reliable perennials that I have grown in my own garden, some for over 15 years, without a single minute spent on pest control. I ranked them from very good to absolutely bulletproof. And the plant at number 1 has not been touched by a single pest in over a decade. But before we start, you need to understand something. Deer resistance is not about fences or sprays. It is about chemistry. Plants that deer avoid contain compounds that make them taste terrible or smell wrong. Once you understand that, you stop fighting nature and start working with it. Let us begin. Number 10. Bee balm. Bee balm surprised me. Most people grow it for hummingbirds and butterflies, which it attracts in huge numbers. But here is what nobody mentions in the nursery. Deer and rabbits completely ignore it. The entire plant is loaded with aromatic oils. Rub a leaf between your fingers, and you will smell a strong, minty fragrance. That scent, pleasant to us, is a chemical signal that tells browsers to move along. The variety Jacob Klein is what I recommend. Deep red flowers that bloom from July through September. The plants grow 3 to 4 feet tall with square stems and dark green leaves. Hummingbirds visit them dozens of times a day. I have watched individual hummingbirds work every single flower on a stem before moving to the next. I planted bee balm along my back fence 12 years ago. That fence borders woods where deer pass through every evening. They walk right past the bee balm without stopping. Meanwhile, the daylilies 20 feet away got eaten to the ground every summer until I gave up and removed them. Here is the one thing you need to know. Bee balm can get powdery mildew in humid conditions. The solution is simple. Choose mildew-resistant varieties like Jacob Klein and plant them with good air circulation, 18 to 24 inches apart. I have not had a mildew problem since I switched to resistant varieties. Number 9. Yarrow. Yarrow is one of those plants that thrives on neglect, and everything that neglects it includes deer, rabbits, and most insects. The ferny foliage has a sharp, almost medicinal smell that repels browsers effectively. I have watched deer sniff yarrow and physically recoil. The variety Moonshine produces flat clusters of bright yellow flowers from June through September. 4 months of bloom with 0 pest problems. The silvery green foliage looks attractive even when the plant is not flowering. Plants grow about 24 inches tall and spread slowly to form substantial clumps. What took me years to learn about yarrow is this: it blooms better in poor soil. I planted some in my amended garden beds and some in a dry, gravelly strip along my driveway. The driveway plants produce twice as many flowers. Rich soil makes yarrow grow leggy and flop over. Lean soil keeps it compact and covered in blooms. Yarrow is native to both North America and Europe, with chemical defenses refined over thousands of years. In 15 years of growing yarrow, I have never seen deer damage, rabbit damage, or significant insect damage on any variety. Plant it 18 inches apart in full sun. Water it the first summer, then forget about it. It will reward your neglect with years of pest-free flowers. Number 8. Catmint. I already loved catmint for its 6-month bloom period, but it earns a spot on this list for a different reason. It is one of the most effective pest deterrent plants I have ever grown. The aromatic foliage contains nepetalactone, the same compound found in catnip. Deer hate it, rabbits avoid it, and research has shown that nepetalactone repels mosquitoes, aphids, and even cockroaches more effectively than some commercial repellents. The variety Walker's Low forms a mound about 24 inches tall and 36 inches wide, covered in spikes of lavender blue flowers from late April through October. That is 6 months of bloom that nothing wants to eat. I planted catmint next to my roses 10 years ago as an experiment. The roses next to catmint get noticeably fewer aphids than the roses planted alone. The aromatic oils seem to create a zone of protection around neighboring plants. Here is the trick nobody tells you. Cut catmint back by half in mid-July after the first flush of flowers fades. Use head shears. Takes about 5 minutes. Within 2 weeks, fresh growth emerges, and you get a completely new round of flowers that lasts until frost. 1 cut per year. That is the entire maintenance requirement for 6 months of pest-proof bloom. Bees love catmint so much that on a warm afternoon you can hear the humming from 20 feet away. But deer, rabbits, and destructive insects stay away completely. Number 7. Blanket flower. Blanket flower earns its place here because it combines deer and rabbit resistance with an almost supernatural toughness. The flowers look like miniature sunsets, red centers bleeding into bright yellow edges, blooming from June until hard frost. 5 months of color that nothing wants to eat. The variety Arizona Sun is particularly impressive. Compact plants about 12 inches tall covered in 3-inch flowers. Deer walk past them. Rabbits ignore them. And here is the part that makes blanket flower extraordinary. It blooms better in terrible soil. I discovered this by accident when I planted some in good garden soil and some in a miserable spot by my driveway, where the ground is mostly clay and gravel. The driveway plants produce twice as many flowers. Blanket flowers are native to the North American prairies. They evolved alongside bison, deer, and every browser on the continent over millions of years. The same compounds that make them unpalatable to deer also help them survive drought, poor soil, and extreme heat. I've watched them bloom through weeks of 95-degree temperatures without wilting, without pest damage, without any care at all. Plant them 12 to 15 inches apart in full sun. Do not fertilize. Do not amend the soil. Do not water once established except during severe drought. Deer and rabbits will not touch these plants. Number 6. Salvia. Hardy salvia might be the most underrated deer-resistant plant in existence. The variety May Night produces deep purple-blue flower spikes from May through October. 6 months. And in 15 years of growing it, I have never seen a deer, rabbit, or destructive insect touch it. Not once. The secret is in the foliage. Crush a salvia leaf and you will smell a sharp aromatic fragrance. That scent comes from volatile oils that are intensely unpleasant to browsers. Even when everything else in my garden gets nibbled during a tough winter, the salvias remain completely untouched. Every single leaf, every single stem. Perfect. Here is what I learned about maximizing salvia's bloom. After the first flush of flowers finishes in late June, cut the spent flower spikes back to the top of the foliage. This triggers a second complete round of flowering in August and September. Skip this trim and bloom drops significantly in late summer. Do the trim and you get 6 full months of deer-proof color. The plants form neat clumps about 18 inches tall and 24 inches wide. They are not fussy about soil as long as it drains well. I planted May Night salvia along my front walkway where deer used to destroy everything I tried. In 15 years, I have divided those original plants 3 times, spreading dozens of new plants throughout my garden. Not one has ever been damaged by any pest. Number 5. Lavender. If deer resistance had a poster child, it would be lavender. The entire plant is a chemical fortress. The essential oils that make lavender smell wonderful to us are the same oils that make every deer, rabbit, and most insects turn away in disgust. The variety phenomenal lives up to its name. It is one of the hardiest lavenders available, surviving winters in Zone 5 through Zone 9. Plants grow about 30 inches tall and wide, forming a silvery green mound topped with classic purple flower spikes from June through August. The fragrance carries on warm breezes for surprising distances, but lavender does more than protect itself. I have found that it creates a buffer zone around other plants. I grow lavender at the entrance to my vegetable garden. Rabbits that used to raid my lettuce and beans have significantly reduced their visits since I installed that lavender border. It is not a perfect fence, but it is a strong deterrent. Here is the critical care tip. Lavender absolutely must have well-drained soil. It will rot and die in wet conditions faster than almost any other perennial. If your soil is heavy clay, amend it heavily with gravel and sand, or grow lavender in raised beds. I killed 3 plants before I figured this out. Once I got the drainage right, the same variety thrived for years. Do not fertilize lavender. Do not overwater it. Plant it in full sun, 18 to 24 inches apart, in the leanest, best drained soil you have. Then watch deer walk right past it for years. Number 4. Russian sage. Russian sage is what happens when a plant decides it wants nothing to do with pests of any kind. The silvery gray aromatic foliage and lavender blue flowers bloom from July through October, 4 months, and in 13 years of growing it in my garden, nothing has ever touched it. No deer, no rabbits, no aphids, no beetles, nothing. The plant grows 3 to 4 feet tall and equally wide. I have it growing against a south-facing wall where summer temperatures regularly hit 95 degrees. It does not care. The more heat it gets, the more it blooms. The more you ignore it, the better it performs. The aromatic oils in Russian sage are extraordinarily potent. On a hot day, you can smell the plants from 6 feet away. That scent, sharp and almost medicinal, is a chemical wall that browsers will not cross. I have watched deer approach the Russian sage and change direction entirely. Here is the maintenance secret. Cut Russian sage back hard in late winter or early spring before new growth starts. I cut mine to about 6 inches above the ground. It looks brutal. It feels wrong. But if you skip this step, the stems become woody and unproductive. That one hard cut in spring is the only maintenance you will ever do. No spraying, no pest control, no protection of any kind. Russian sage protects itself. Plant it 3 feet apart in full sun with excellent drainage. Do not fertilize. Do not water it once established except during extreme drought. I planted Russian sage 13 years ago in a spot where nothing else would survive. It has thrived for over a decade without a single pest or disease problem. Number 3. Lamb's ear. Lamb's ear might be the softest plant you will ever touch. The thick, silvery, fuzzy leaves feel exactly like a lamb's ear. Children love it. Gardeners love it. But deer and rabbits want nothing to do with it. The dense coating of fine hairs on each leaf serves multiple purposes. It reflects sunlight, reducing heat stress. It conserves moisture, making the plant extremely drought tolerant. And it creates a texture that browsers absolutely refuse to eat. Deer will not bite through that fuzzy coating. Rabbits physically avoid it. Even slugs, which eat almost everything, cannot navigate those hairy leaves. The variety Helen von Stein is the one I recommend. It produces larger leaves than the species and rarely sends up flower stalks, which means you get a thick, ground-hugging carpet of silver foliage all season long. Plants grow about 8 inches tall and spread 12 to 18 inches wide, creating a beautiful edging along paths and borders. I discovered lamb's ear's pest resistance by accident. I planted it purely for its texture in a border that deer destroyed every year. Everything around the lamb's ear got eaten. The lamb's ear remained completely untouched, season after season, year after year. That observation changed how I designed my borders. Here is the trick. I now plant lamb's ear as a living barrier around plants that deer like. It does not provide perfect protection, but deer dislike walking through it and often choose to go around. Think of it as a fuzzy, silvery fence that doubles as a beautiful ground cover. Plant lamb's ear 12 to 15 inches apart in full sun to partial shade. It needs well-drained soil and prefers dry conditions. Overwatering is the main thing that kills it. In 10 years, I have never had to protect it from any pest. Number 2. Ornamental allium. Ornamental alliums are members of the onion family, and if you have ever noticed that deer do not eat your onions or garlic, you already understand why alliums make this list. The entire plant, from bulb to flower, contains sulfur compounds that browsers find deeply offensive. The variety Globemaster produces enormous purple spheres, sometimes 10 inches across, held on thick stems 3 feet tall. They bloom in late spring, and the dried seed heads remain attractive for months afterward. But it is not just the flowers. The strap-shaped leaves emerge in early spring, and deer will not touch them at any stage of growth. I planted allium bulbs throughout my perennial borders 8 years ago. They come up every spring, bloom spectacularly, then their foliage fades as summer perennials fill in. Deer browse the surrounding plants occasionally. They have never once touched an allium. Here is what makes ornamental alliums even more valuable as pest deterrents. Like lavender, they seem to create a protective zone around neighboring plants. The sulfur compounds released from the foliage discourage browsers from lingering in the area. I have noticed that perennials planted within 12 inches of allium clumps get significantly less deer damage than identical plants elsewhere in the garden. Plant allium bulbs in fall, about 6 inches deep and 8 inches apart, in full sun with well-drained soil. They require almost zero maintenance, no spraying, no fencing, no netting. The chemistry does all the work. After 8 years, my original bulbs have multiplied on their own. Every spring, more pest-proof blooms than the year before without spending a penny. Number 1. Peony. After 51 years of gardening, the plant that has proven most completely and absolutely resistant to deer, rabbits, and garden pests in my experience is the peony. Not a single chewed leaf in over 20 years. Not one nibbled bud, not one damaged stem. In 2 decades, 0 pest problems. 0. That might surprise you. Peonies are known for their spectacular fragrant flowers. They seem like something deer would love. But peonies contain perennial, a compound in their roots, stems, and leaves that is mildly toxic and deeply unpleasant to browsers. Deer learn very quickly not to eat peonies. Rabbits seem to know instinctively, and the thick, leathery foliage discourages most insects naturally. The variety Sarah Bernhardt has been growing in my garden for 22 years. That is not a typo. 22 years from the same plant. Every May it produces enormous double pink flowers, sometimes 6 inches across, with a fragrance that fills the entire garden. After the flowers finish, the dark green foliage remains attractive all summer and turns beautiful shades of red and gold in fall. Here is the thing about peonies. They take 3 years to establish. The first year, 1 or 2 small flowers. The second year, a few more. The third year and beyond, the plants explode into full production and keep getting better decade after decade. My 22-year-old Sarah Bernhardt produces over 40 flowers every spring, and it has never required a single second of pest control. What makes peonies extraordinary beyond pest resistance is their permanence. A well-planted peony can live for over 100 years. There are documented plantings blooming continuously since the 1800s. You are not planting for a season. You are planting for a lifetime. The care is simple. Plant peony roots in fall with the eyes no more than 2 inches below the soil surface. This is critical. Plant them too deep and they will not bloom. Full sun, good drainage, and patience. After the third year, the only maintenance is cutting back foliage in late fall and placing a support ring in spring for heavy double varieties. I have tried every deer deterrent product on the market over 51 years. Sprays, repellents, fences, motion-activated devices, soap bars, you name it. Some worked temporarily, none worked permanently. But peonies have been 100% pest-free for 22 consecutive years, without any protection whatsoever. That is not a spray you have to reapply. That is not a fence you have to maintain. That is the plant itself doing what evolution designed it to do. If you can only take one thing away from this video, let it be this: stop fighting pests and start choosing plants that pests refuse to fight. Every plant on this list uses its own chemistry to stay protected. You do not have to spray. You do not have to build fences. You do not have to check for damage every morning. I wasted 20 years and thousands of dollars on pest control before I learned this lesson. The most beautiful gardens are not the ones with the best fences. They are the ones with the smartest plant choices. I am 74 now. My spray bottles are gone. My chemical cabinet is empty, and my garden is more beautiful than it ever was. Choose the right plants, then let them do the work.